So, my name is Richard Bingley, and this is a brief seminar presentation for BPP University about the impending cybersecurity threats, those that might be the most significant during the calendar year of 2018. So we're filming this here outside the Houses of Parliament in Britain, where just a couple of years ago, Britain set up a national cybersecurity centre just a few hundred yards away over in Victoria. What this video will look at today are my 5 predictions of where cyber threats will mainly occur, impacting both the public sector and the private sector. If you've got any questions, please do email me afterwards and I'll be happy to provide references and other evidential sources that back up this presentation. But what you'll notice through the presentation is when I'm talking, a number of references and sources will flip up on the screen beside me. So here goes with my top 5 predictions of cyber threats in the international arena for 2018. So the first types of threats that we are going to talk about are the civil society and political attacks that we're seeing. We're thinking that attackers will deploy armies of bots now to propagate false news narratives. They will use weaponized fake news to advance their own perspectives and their own national missions. They will inflate partisan political debates at the extremes, and generally cybersecurity will be seeking to make sense of the forces that are out there that are aiming to undermine democratic institutions. We've seen the famous cases of the France and the American presidential elections over the past year or so, manipulated and distorted by cyber threats. That's only set to continue because there's so much more consumer data out there now, and we are looking at the mass scooping up and intelligent use of people's social media preferences, mass audience preferences, and that will be used, we think, to increasingly attack civil society and political governmental domains. Our second prediction is around the mega data breaches that we've seen over the past 2 or 3 years. We're thinking about the Equifax data breach of 145 million customer records last year. We're looking at the possible breach of up to 1 billion Yahoo email addresses, and they've been breached. The question is, what happens to all of that data now? So we could be looking at mass spear phishing emails that are highly detailed and very effective at social engineering attacks. We're going to be looking at massive amounts of phishing bots and the intelligent scraping of social media. The third cyber threat that we are identifying this year is, rather ironically, the enforcement of the European Union General Data Protection Regulation. And the reason that we say it's a threat is because, firstly, it's an opportunity. Many companies, in fact all companies, should be wanting to demonstrate to their customer markets that they are EU GDPR compliant. In other words, that their customer data is safe and secure in their hands. However, EU GDPR is becoming a big commercial opportunity too, because companies are wanting to show to customers that they are even more compliant than, say, their competitors. But where the problem kicks in, of course, is with reputation. And those companies that are demonstrating or expressing that they are ultra EU GDPR compliant, if they get caught out and they lose that data and they end up being named and shamed in newspapers or possibly being fined by regulatory authorities, then of course their reputation is probably further deteriorated than it would be in the environment of EU GDPR not existing in the first place. Our fourth prediction for cyber threats during 2018 will not surprise you. Our prediction, though, is that ransomware will become even worse. It will be even bigger on an industrial scale. We will see a rise in ransomware attacks that also exfiltrate data, allowing cyber criminals a second wave to ransom your data through the threat of exposure. Additionally, ransomware as a service will continue to grow among hacking communities. It will be a significant percentage of 2018 cyber attacks. Example, the 2017 WannaCry attack exfiltrated data. Where's that data going to, and how will that malware be changed, adapted, improved as we move forward through 2018? The UK government has called out North Korea and a hacking group called Lazarus for responsibility for the WannaCry attack. In fact, President Trump over in America claimed that North Korea and the WannaCry group were responsible also for that attack back in May. President Trump's administration's response was to issue a denial of service attack upon the North Korean intelligence agency for about 10 days at the back end of September 2017. So ransomware occurring, damaging, exfiltrating data from companies and from people, but also the political impact of it. The countries that are supposedly behind it may be being brought more to task, is a huge potential cyber security threat vector going through 2018. Pulling all of that together, when we look at ransomware and when we look at political and civil society attacks and the attempt by certain countries to influence democratic institutions and democratic political processes, when we pull all that together, my prediction for 2018 is that actually the public will come to conclude that cyber wars do actually exist. They're beginning to crystallise, and we can see tangibly how they might play out in the future. A couple of years ago, fearing a massive wave of cybersecurity incidents and possibly the advent of cybersecurity wars, the British government here in London formed the National Cyber Security Centre. The National Cyber Security Centre has as its parent organisation GCHQ, based over in Cheltenham. Its function really is to brief and prepare public sector organisations and private commercial organisations around the threats from cyber systems. It issues small business guides, it issues a weekly threat report, it publishes steps to improve public sector cybersecurity, and it works very closely with multinational enterprises based here in Britain to try and protect not just the critical national infrastructure of the nation, but also our private sector. So with me now is Graham McGowan, who is a cyber security advisor with the training company UK Security Partners. Graham spent 30 years in UK government, some of that time with an intelligence agency. Graham, welcome. We've seen countries get themselves into difficulties. You know, back in September of 2017, President Trump launched denial of service attack, or his cyber command did, against the North Korean intelligence agency. You know, we've seen the Stuxnet attack allegedly by Israel and the Americans back almost a decade ago now against sort of the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Are the public beginning to understand that there are these cyber wars going on, or is this something that's science fiction still?
I think we're slowly getting there. Some previous presentations I gave were about cyber being the new battleground.
Right.
We've seen land, sea, air, then we saw space, and now we are in this thing called cyber. And because again it is so easy to do, and you can hide yourself away anywhere in the world. And we saw in the election campaigns the potential for manipulating results. There has been denial. However, there are indications that that could have happened in the UK, and certainly in the States.
And here we are in Victoria, in London. Just a few metres away is the National Cyber Security Centre that's been set up by the British government over the last 18 months. Do governments need to establish these centres, and if so, what do these centres need to do for their businesses and for their public organisations?
I think it's been a big step forward for UK PLC.
Right.
The major issue we've got is resourcing. From what I can see, the NCSC are only able to look at the major issues, critical national infrastructure and the big players.
Okay, so to summarise, we've looked at the 5 major cyber threats for 2018. That's our prediction. And you've seen the references and the book sources that we've provided in the slides. Our final point would be around computer emergency response teams. Every organisation should seek to put those in place. How we do that and how we embed senior leadership buy into those processes will define how cyber resilient we probably are as an organisation. As you can see behind me, there's an old ancient fort here. These days we're more interested in technical defences, but as we said at the start of the presentation, cyber security is both about a technical solution and also a physical security solution too. Thank you.